Hello, my name is Sue McCarthy Robinson, and today I will express my opinions regarding a few technological and societal occurrences. Firstly, I will give my thoughts on the Nevada Supreme Court decisions, reviewing ethical and calculated approach. Secondly, I will express my views concerning outsourcing actions taken by Watchmark Comitel from the same perspectives. Thirdly, I will give my argument on the reason for differences that employers have with diversity legislation in Canada versus United States. In 1997, case of University and Community College System of Nevada versus Farmer, Farmer was initially awarded $40,000 in damages for violation of the Equal Pay Act. The university won an appeal in front of the state of Nevada's Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear the case, leaving the lower court's verdict in place. I believe that Nevada Supreme Court declining hearing this case is wrong. The purpose of hearing this case was to bring attention to the injustice that it portrays. Awarding monies for damages is insignificant compared to the emotional damages that Yvette Farmer endured. Here she was a finalist for the position in the sociology department of the university. She's a white female that was very well qualified. In order to fulfill a minority quota, a black male, less qualified, was hired for the position. Not only a less qualified applicant was hired, but he was hired for $7,000 more in salary than the position was forecasted for. Diversity was the goal, I am sure, but inequality was achieved at the end. A company trying to reach minority quotas or affirmative action quotas inadvertently tapped into discriminatory consequences. Diversity measures are important to adopt, but not at the expense of a person's qualifications. If a person is not hired because they do not fit into a minority quota, then it is unfair to that qualified candidate. The emotional trauma or psychological distress that can affect his or her confidence. This trauma can cause depression or post-traumatic stress symptoms. It can compromise the mental health of a person. It is wrong to pass over a person for a position that he or she is best qualified for or paid less for. An action should not be done just to collaborate a diversity plan if it is not a just action. It is not a noble goal to achieve. In this case, to recap the reality of the case that they hired a less qualified black male at a higher wage offended the diversity plan. A higher wage was paid as a minority bonus for scandalous reasons. By hiring the less qualified diverse male, an additional position was granted to the department for doing this. This discriminatory action spread into a blackmailing outcome. My next topic will be the Watchmark Comitel Corporation. It has undergone significant changes since the case of outsourcing. They were renamed Valiant Corporation and later were acquired by IBM. This shows the competitive nature of the software industry. Based on this knowledge, the outsourcing actions taken by Watchmark Comitel from the ethical and calculated perspectives will be examined. The question that I have regarding this case is, does the end justify the means? I understand the purpose behind the action of outsourcing because the production costs can be reduced, while production can increase and labor costs can be reduced. What does it do for the workforce in the United States is my question. What is our duty to our society with keeping our citizens employed in the land that they live in? Asking current employees to train the replacements is emotionally paralyzing. For example, AT&T tried to possibly lessen the emotional blow by telling their staff that they were needed to take an active role with a knowledge transfer project. The company lied to their employees, thinking that it would be a better tactic, but it only led to a mistrusting environment. I disagree with complete outsourcing of jobs overseas. It adds to further unemployment that increases the United States poverty level. I agree with enforcing the Bernie Sanders Outsourcing Prevention Act. This act would impose a tax on all companies that outsource jobs. It would punish companies that outsource more than 50 jobs, prohibiting them from obtaining federal contracts, tax breaks, grants, and loans. I believe that we need to do what it takes to keep our United States citizens employed. There are alternatives to outsourcing jobs. There's a population like students, disabled adults, or veterans that can be an alternative to hiring at a lower wage. Hiring family members awards companies advantages with possibly hiring at lower wages. Bartering for services could also be a way to reduce labor costs. My next topic, Canada versus the United States diversity legislation. It is easier for employers to comply with diversity legislation in Canada than it is in the United States. Why is this? The reason for this is because Canada's focus is on human rights versus the United States' focus of civil rights. Human rights are different from civil rights. Civil rights are derived from laws that provide rights. If certain laws do not exist, then those certain rights do not exist. The culture of Canada indicates that human rights are in place because people are human, and these rights are the best practice. These are rights that a person is expected to have, which are not based on laws. Human rights are inherent to all human beings, no matter a person's race, gender, ethnicity, religion, or generation. Canada has governmental oversight that audits and measures employment equality. Diversity is highly regulated in Canada, so all companies are held to the same standards. Canadian human rights requires comparable worth and compensation, which is called pay equity, so that a male and female are paid the same for the same jobs. The Canadian Employment Equity Act of 1995 imposes fines up to $50,000 for companies not meeting diversity requirements. Exercising in media diversity is my next topic. The FCC has issued new rules for protecting the neutrality of the content of the internet. There are strengths and weaknesses of these policies. The social health of the media is controversial. It is legal for employers to monitor emails and other communications. I do feel that it should be legal for employers to monitor email and other communications that their employees send if there is a valid purpose for doing so. During work hours and on company equipment, a person should assume that his or her